Hi, folks. Welcome back in the room. Welcome back Amsterdam, and welcome people online again. Hope you're all watching, or at least watching the replay later. We got an amazing talk today as well from Spearbit. We actually got 3 speakers. We got Spencer, Gerard, and Ray. I'm not going to take up too much of their time, but make sure you follow everything what they're doing, and what they're doing as well in the industry as well to help increase security. So I give it over to Spencer.
Thanks a lot, Mark. Hey, everyone. I'm Spencer from Spearbit. We're a community of Web3 security freelance auditors, and we're going to be having a community talk today. So first, I'm going to give a quick intro on what Spearbit is, what we do, and then we're really going to get into the meat of the 2 technical and product-based discussions. First, Gerard's going to talk about how to simplify Solidity code with sorted contracts. And then Ray's going to get into how we look at security and risk in Web3 versus how CISOs look at it in Web2. Okay, cool. So, first to kind of introduce the concept of Spearbit to the audience. As we all know, there's been some really good discussions today on some of the bottlenecks in the auditing industry, right? There's this unfortunate, tough trade-off that projects have to make right now, which is you either have to wait, 6 to 8 months to get a quality audit from a top-tier firm, like some of the speakers downstairs previously, or you maybe have some economic incentive, unfortunately, to ship unaudited code, right? And if you look at the REC leaderboard, again, unfortunately, the top 10, like at least 70% are just flat-out unaudited projects. But again, the ability to make money and move fast, unfortunately, makes these projects ship and ask questions later. So it's a huge problem for our industry. And that problem is really, again, as other speakers today have said, is because of the lack of both new talent flowing into the space, which Securium is helping to solve. But then for the existing talent, right, how do we get existing people that are security experts who can contribute time to audit projects? How do we incentivize them and make it available and easy for them to actually dedicate some of their time to audit as a freelancer? So that's what Spearbit is here for. We provide our freelance security researchers access to deals, right? So they don't have to go out and chase clients themselves. We provide them liability protection. So no one's gotten sued yet either as an auditing firm or as a freelancer. But again, as the industry kind of matures and there's some interaction with the existing legal system, unfortunately there may be some lawsuits. So we provide some liability protection to our community, and then we also provide teamwork, right? Auditing is one type of freelance job that you don't necessarily want to do it alone, right? More eyes are always good, and that's something that Spearbit has a philosophy of. Other good projects in the space like Code Arena have a similar philosophy, right? Where more eyes on code is a good thing. And then obviously from the client perspective, we're able to get projects audited that our community chooses to audit, our time from, first contact to if the community, chooses to participate, is around 2 months, which, 1 to 2 months, which is pretty good for the ecosystem. Okay, and then talking about the types of levels of researchers we have. So we have 3 levels at this point of independent freelance security researchers in our community. So first, lead security researchers. These are folks that are experts and mentor and help kind of teach and upskill the other auditors on the team. Then we have at the intermediate level our security researchers. These are people that have done maybe 1 to 5 audits on a freelance basis, and then we have apprentices, and the majority of our apprentices actually come from Securium. So again, we can't just rely on the existing experts in the space. We have to grow new talent, and the only way to give new talent is to give people a chance, right? And pair them and upskill them under the tutelage and mentorship of existing experts. So if you're interested as a security researcher, just go to spearbit.com and fill out join the team, that form, and we'll get you started. But yeah, that's enough shilling about Spearbit. We're going to get into the next talk by Gerard. So, Gerard, thanks.
Yes, my sheets are online now. So thanks everybody for being here. I'm going to tell something about when I did some audits, and then I have usually some suggestions for improvement, and I want to explain something about an improvement suggestion that I have over here. So first a little bit of myself. My name is Gerard. I've been doing smart contracts audits for Spearbit for a couple of months now, and also done quite a lot of audits for Code Arena, and also did some audits for Sherlock and for Immunify. I'm actually still on the Code Arena leaderboard on the 3rd place, so I'm kind of proud of that. And my Twitter handle is @gpersoon, and I've put my slides on my Twitter. So if you want to look at the slides, you can look it up on my Twitter. And by the way, my name looks like Anand, but actually that's my real name. Okay, when I do audits, I frequently see that there are quite a lot of risks that are related mainly from trivial programming errors. So minor mistakes that people make, or copy-pasting the code and forgetting to change something, or just making the code overly complex and by that making mistakes that could be easily avoided. And just the complexity of the code increases the risks of high-risk errors in your code. So what I always look for when I'm doing audits and try to do improvement suggestions about that, about ways to reduce the complexity of the code. I actually did an audit at Code Arena looking at the code base, and it was so complex I could hardly understand it. And afterwards the project was doing an audit at Spearbit, and in between they were doing some updates in the code. So I told them, well, if you're looking at the code anyway, you should just try to reduce the complexity a little bit, because it was just too complicated for auditors to understand what was going on. And they really took that advice, and they even sort of rewritten the entire code base. So that was quite an effort they made, but it made quite a difference, because it indeed was a lot easier to understand than afterwards. So that's not only good for the auditors, but it's not really the problem for the auditors, but it's also for the project themselves. So they can easier maintain the code if it's less complex. Well, if you reduce the complexity, then the readability, of course, goes up. That's good for everybody. Less issues. And also frequently the gas costs are lowered. So it has multiple advantages to do that. So that's why I try to recommend that. Now I'm going to explain an example that is found during an audit of Sense Finance. What they do, they create tokens where they split the principal and the yield token. So they take a yield-bearing asset, like a compound token, and they actually split that in 2 different tokens. So one token, there you get the yield, and the other token is just the principal. And what they do, they create 2 tokens. So that's the green tokens, which are related to the blue token. So that's the original compounding token. And what they do then is they put the yield-bearing token and the green principal token in a balancer pool. And that's like an AMM, but it has a specific formula. So it's not the normal formula of x times y equals k. But there's a time version in between in the formula. So that's relevant for the way those tokens work. So a balancer can solve that perfectly. But the problem is, if you put it in the balancer pool and you do interactions with it, then it's important what is the order of the token. So balancer sorts those tokens, and Uniswap's also doing that to create a deterministic way to interact with the tokens. So you can't accidentally swap the tokens. So that's a good thing. Only the problem is that within their Solidity code, they every time were checking which is the lower 2 of the 2 tokens. So based on that, they go either, they take the one or the other. And there happen to be some bugs related to that code. So they made a mistake in that switching part. And it was also kind of difficult to read. So that's a high probability for errors there. But thinking about that, I realized so that the blue token, that's a fixed token. So you cannot change anything about it. But the green tokens are the ones that they create themselves. So if you're going to create the token anyway, then you can do a trick, which I'm going to explain later on, to determine the address of the token. So you can make sure that the green token is always smaller than the blue token. And then if you are 100% sure about that, then in the rest of your code, you can build on that and simplify your code by doing that. Is that clear about what I'm trying to achieve? Yeah, so basically that's for example useful in AMMs like Uniswap and for Balancer. And this is the problem that you would have otherwise. So depending on the order, you would get a different outcome. Yeah, so the solution is to create a token on a specific address and then make sure that that address is smaller than the other one. Of course, it depends on your project if that's possible. So you don't always generate a token yourself, of course. But if that situation occurs, you can do something like that. And here I've created a piece of token of code with the help of Alex to do that. So I don't know if it's big enough to read, but basically, we just take one token and then deploy another token and check with a random create2 address, and then just try different addresses until you get a token that has a smaller address than the other one. So I've put it in Remix to show how that works. So it's pretty straightforward. So this is the same code. Yeah, here you see it being deployed, and here you see the token addresses, and it's found this is the given address, and it's found another address that's smaller than the previous address. And actually, like this, it's pretty straightforward. You don't have to do that many tries to find an address for that. But if you just do it like this, there's a problem that could occur. Does somebody know what problem could occur if you do it like this with a simple smart contract to generate addresses like that? The problem that could occur is that the token has a vanity address. So they generated a vanity address so that, for example, it has a lot of leading zeros because they want to have the token to have a nice address. And if you then just try to generate a token like this, then you can have to try maybe a million times or more to generate an address that's smaller than that one. So that's, in a smart contract, that's not what you want to do. But what you can do, of course, is do that offline. So in a separate program, run it offline and then pass that address that you've generated to your smart contract and then use that to deploy the token, for example. Yeah, so this is the problem that you have. And there are tools for that which are available online. This is one of the tools, Eradicate, and that can generate addresses for create2. So I've created a small contract to show that. Yeah, so I've deployed the contract, and to use create tool to create another contract that's based on the contract itself and the contract that you want to deploy. So I've taken the hexadecimal code of the contract that I want to deploy. That's here, we're taking the creation code. And here with this function bytecode, I can retrieve that code. So that's a lot of hexadecimal. And then because this is an offline tool, I have to copy paste that online. Now I can run this tool. So that's using the graphics card to generate those addresses. And in this example, I'm aiming for a lot of 0 leading addresses. So you can see here, it's finding a couple of addresses with a lot of leading zeros. So here's like 5, here's like 7. So the more zeros, of course, the longer it takes. But if you're doing it offline anyway, it doesn't really matter all that much. You can just wait until you have the right number. So for this example, I have to copy the salt, put it here. Yeah, now it has deployed the token that I want at this address, starts with 52C. So that's the same one as this address. So that's just to verify that the tool indeed works. So it took a little while to get everything running. So it's good to have an example and to build from that. So yeah, well, my suggestion was for the project to use this. I'm not quite sure if they really are doing that, but I thought it was neat to show it. So in the what I've put on Twitter, this you can copy paste the source and try it out for yourself. Yeah, and other use cases for this, for the sorted order, could also be when you have an array of contracts and you want to find duplicates in an array. That's also a lot easier if the array is sorted. So then you don't have to do all the complex stuff. So maybe somebody in the audience has another use case for this and another idea what you can do with this. No, not yet. Anybody has any questions? No? Okay. Well, thank you very much for your attention.
Hello. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Gerard, for your very technical presentation. I'm going to do something quite the opposite. I'm going to talk about security risk management. I'm Ray. I'm part of the Spearbit community, and I have a background in information security in banking. So, and the title is, okay, what can we within crypto learn from traditional finance? I think since we're at the security conference, let's talk also about security risk. I think it is a risk problem. Risk, it isn't black or white, you know, it is a scale. And I think everyone knows, like even as a user, you're somewhere on that scale. Zero risk is probably inexistent. And 100% risk is not very realistic either. So I think the hard part is trying to define where you are on this scale. So it can be as a user, but also as a organization or as a company. Some questions here is, we've been talking about security for more than for 2 days here at this event. And I think as a founder or an employee, everyone is struggling with, okay, how much security measures do I need to take? Which ones? How much can it cost? And is there something like enough security? Which is, again, a risk question. Same for a VC. You expect a certain return on investment, but you also expect from your companies, I assume, that they operate within certain boundaries from a security perspective. So are the security risks they are taking on, is it acceptable, reasonable, and can they show it? Is it something you can have any assurance on? And I think even those are questions as a user. So for example, the discussion hardware wallets versus software wallets, it's always going to be risk choices you can make. I think the point of my presentation is we shouldn't reinvent the wheel from scratch. I guess we need to take the wheel that traditional finance or the financial sector has been driving with, and don't reinvent it from scratch. Because, for example, the banking sector, insurers, they've been doing this for tens of years, and also the security part. I'm not going to explain what a risk is. I guess most people know, but I think there are different types or categories of risks. So we have the financial risk, which is liquidity, market, credit risk, which is not my cup of tea. But then there is the different family of risks, which is in the sector called the non-financial risks or operational risks. Now, what are they? I'm going to talk from a traditional financial institution. So let's, of course, talk about information security risk, which is the typical triad of confidentiality, integrity, availability, so threats to that. But there's also fraud risk. For example, what if my customers get phished? What if we have a rogue employee? Those are these types of risks. Privacy, banks, they have compliance. There's outsourcing risk. I think many central banks are just like us, really, really worried about all the cloud providers we are using. They have any anti-money laundering regulations to follow and so forth. I've put on some suggested reading. For this talk, I Googled the Goldman Sachs annual report. It's in there. Take any European bank, read it, and they have some nice pages around non-financial risks. I'm quickly gonna hop in there. So what we're all using is the risk appetite framework. So what is it? Because in order to answer the question like how much security do I need, you need to answer the question how much security risk do you want to take, and that's the appetite part. Then there's a profile part of okay, how much security risk am I actually taking, and then you have some thresholds like upper limits and so forth. I'd like to explain this. The appetite is a wall. You know, you don't want to crash into the wall. Your profile is you're driving a car, and these metrics, they are your speedometer. Like, am I driving away from the wall, or am I speeding faster and faster towards it? High versus low, which is really difficult to define, but I think you can take the qualitative approach and saying, okay, I'm a low, as a company, for example, I want to take on low security risk, which means you will probably need to do a lot of security, to take a lot of security measures to be able to do this. Another statement could be like, no, I'm fine with being middle in the pack. We don't want to be number one in the sphere. Customers, if it's just like, what, it's okay, we're mediocre. The other part is, okay, how much money for this risk type, like security risk, how much money am I willing to lose? And that's a hard amount of euros or dollars that you should try to define. I'll go into it in an example a bit later on. So that the previous part was like the risk appetite. Now the profile is, okay, what am I doing exactly to make sure I don't reach that appetite? And that is mostly what security measures am I taking, and am I doing enough? And are these effective or not? Now, on effectiveness of security controls, I can talk for days, I guess, but it's not because you're doing something, you're doing the right thing. For example, I think any traditional bank, there are frameworks more than I can sum up here, but there is a lot more to security or information security than smart contract risk, for example. So I'm not going to explain this in detail, but I think there's one part. The identify part is, okay, are you doing the risk analysis parts? Like, are you thinking about risks? Are you documenting them? Are you discussing them, and so forth? And then you have the more traditional security measures like protect or prevent, like the firewalling, encryption, data security stuff, detection. Do you even know whether you're being hacked, or if someone is trying to do so? So that is the detection part. Then the response, like it's like a car accident. It's not if you're gonna crash, it's when you're gonna crash, what are you gonna do? So that's the incident response part, where you should prepare. And then the recover part is like business continuity, disaster recovery. What if my data center blows up, or my AWS cluster goes down? What am I gonna do? So this is an overview of all the typical sort of security measures you should take in order to mitigate information security risk. Then the measurement part is defining key risk indicators. So you want to know whether you're doing okay, how it is with your profile, and you need to be able to measure this. This can be any number of. You can say, okay, we're doing risk analysis, and there are some risks above appetite, which we're really, really not comfortable with. I think in the presentation with the insurance guys, just this day, there is systemic risk, there's emerging risks, there's a lot of risk, for example, which is out of your control, but you should know about it. You can start tracking the absolute number of security incidents you're having. You can start tracking the total cost, maturities, scores for your controls, and so forth, and certification. I've put it between quotes because I think every ransomware company was probably ISO 27000 certified. There's only so much value in a certification. Now, I'm going to give you an example here. So how do you define, like, how much am I willing to lose? So that's question 1. And 2, if I have this amount, then what do I do? How to determine X? I think it's and I understand it's really, really, really hard to define this in the Web3 world, because there is so much risk and there's so much stuff that can go wrong. But I think historically, insurers, they have data. We have the direct leaderboard, but in the traditional finance world, they have their claims, and they know how much there is. So, for example, this is a model where you say, okay, with a certain confidence interval, you can say costs. I have a security incident. It will probably cost me that much money. This is a fictional example because I can't share real details here, but the way you go on the x-axis, with a 99% confidence rate, you can say, okay, and a cyber incident isn't going to cost me more than 25 million, which is remediation, opportunity cost, whatever it is. So this gives you some sort of projection, like, okay, this is my max number. So yeah, maybe quickly back. It's the devil is always in the details. You know, the higher you go up, there are also the major hacks, the major impacts, the mask of this world. They pull up the numbers, of course. So here is an example. So imagine your appetite is 10 million. Okay, what do you do now? Typically, I hope you will invest in some security measures. It can be people, tools, whatever. But then you're only investing. You're just, okay, I have some security people. I've called in some auditors and so forth. You're probably also going to reserve some funds for the day stuff goes wrong. So, for example, you can put aside some money. Here, I think the financial sector, they have regulations. So central banks say, okay, you put this percentage of your revenue over the years you put aside. You have to do it. There are rules there. But you see, even with your 2 million in the bank, it's not gonna cover your loss for your appetite for 2 million of 10 million. So you can choose to insure the rest. This is overly simplified, of course, and I think it doesn't directly, translate to the Web3 world. But I think it is the mental model you should remember. Yeah, and then of course you need to measure. So let's keep track of every incident which costs us more than 10K, for example, per quarter. And if we cross, for example, 5, if we have 5 per quarter, there should ring an alarm, and we should think about, okay, what can we do better? Circling back, this was, for example, a small example for security risk, but if you do this for fraud risk, for whatever operational or non-financial risk you're doing, defining your appetite, defining your risk profile, defining the key risk indicators, you get a sort of helicopter view of the risk posture of your organization. And then you can start thinking about, okay, am I over-investing at certain parts? Am I under-investing? Am I having incidents here or there? Am I getting hacked? Do I have fraud, phishing, for example, of my customers and so forth? And this really gives you, the more, you can consciously take decisions risk-based and not just because we're all, I think, engineers and techies, and we're always think about more and more security. But I think from a business perspective, it should be balanced, and you should argument why you take this security measure and not this one. So I think key takeaways for today were, please don't reinvent the wheel from scratch. So I guess let's start to build from the practices that have shown to work. I think I've heard a lot of speakers yesterday and today that in the sphere are really working on this, enhancing this, and applying them in the Web3 world. And I would also give you some homework and think about, for your company, think about this model, like, okay, is this applicable to me as a company, and how would I use this? And that is a bit my message for today. So if you have any questions, feel free. I'm at the end of my presentation.
We got 5 minutes left for questions. So I know I know it's the second day and might be tired, but you should be able to come up with a question. So I know I'm putting the challenge forward. Anybody? Otherwise, you know the answer. Any irrelevant question. Otherwise, the answer is 42.
Do you think this will be possible to do so also in a DAO? for example, Spearbit is a DAO, and how would you handle, the whole security setup of a DAO? So where the members are more fluid, etc., and so on.
Yeah, I think everywhere where there is a security question, and I think nowadays there is everything's digital, so there is always some sort of security risk. How you even look at it, I think you can do it, and I think you should do it and make it explicit indeed. And I think so sure. Everywhere there's revenue, money, you stand to lose something, and security is important. I think you can try to do your best, to try to quantify it and say, okay, this is okay, and this is not okay. And I think even in a DAO, it's just a decentralized version of just coming to some sort of shared view, like this is a doable or acceptable risk, and this isn't, for example. No, I think it's more than possible, yeah.
Anybody else want to take a punt? Nobody? Okay, I'm going to say thank you. We're going to have next talk in roughly 8 minutes from now. So keep tuned. Don't drop from the stream. Take a break. Have some water and coffee if you're here. And we'll be back in 8 minutes. Thank you.